The insurance industry has almost every job you could imagine. There's technology, there's actuary, there's accounting, there's sales, there's underwriting, there's management, there's any job you can think of in that industry, they have it. So you want to figure out, hey, how can I get a paycheck?
Yeah.
Right. And not worry about paying the rent, and then figure out where I can go in this industry and find myself. And it's a worldwide industry. It's not going away. It uses tremendous amount of technology and problem solving. You got to figure out where you fit into it.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and tell your buddies. This Edge of Excellence is a great place to figure out what you want to do for a living. And we've got a cool episode today. Greg Hughes, who I've known for a long time, who's created a very cool niche in a very big industry. He's going to talk about how to create the niche, how to find a place that you can be passionate about. He's going to talk about his path to success and betting on himself, then acting. Do you believe in yourself? Do you understand where you are right now? And are you acting? We're going to get into that. We're going to get into getting curious to find out what excites you. Welcome to a wonderful show. Welcome to the Edge of Excellence. Thank you for listening. Well, Greg, thank you for making time, coming out of the guitar collection to share your insight with the 20-somethings of the world. Welcome to the Edge of Excellence.
Thank you, my man. I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you. We're going to get deep into various roles of insurance, starting your own company, developing niches in existing businesses. But before we do, I got to figure out what your definition of excellence is. What's your definition of excellence?
So my definition of excellence is a formula. Okay. And it's the Stockdale Paradox plus action. And Admiral Stockdale was the highest ranking officer to be captured in Vietnam. He was captured for 7 years. And the Stockdale Paradox is his philosophy, which is unwavering faith that you're going to prevail somehow in the end with acknowledgement of the most brutal facts of your reality. So in his case, it was, I'm being tortured, I'm imprisoned against my will, and but I'm somehow going to get out of here. I don't know how, but I will get out. But I'm also acknowledging I'm in this gnarly situation. So my definition of excellence is you need to acknowledge where you are and the limitations of where you are, but you also have to have this belief in yourself that I'm going to somehow make something happen. I might not even know what that is right now. And then the second part of that is action. And my definition of action is ABZ. And I've used that to guide me. ABZ is, Z is where you want to go. A is where you are, and B is what you're doing in the next 15 minutes. And that came from a client of mine, and I was having coffee with him, and his career had long since ended. And I said, tell me your story. And he said, well, I want to be a musician. I moved out from the East Coast to the West Coast. I'm working in a retail store that sells musical instruments. And I'm thinking I'm going to be a rock star, a recording artist. And the owner dies. And 3 other employees and him went to the owner's wife and said, what are you going to do? And she said, I want nothing to do with this business. So he said, the lesson was you take advantage of things that unfold in front of you. Yeah. And he said, before I knew it, I was in retail and I was in business. I wasn't going to be a rock star. I was going to be a retailer. And 30 years later, they had more than 150 stores and they sold that to private equity. And I was asking him.
I made way more money than he would have if he'd been a rock star.
Way more. And he said to me, I said, how did you do it? And he said, ABZ. And he said, every day you're going to run into things you don't know how to do, you don't understand, that confuse you. And he said, I would always just sort of look forward and then come back to where am I right now and what can I do literally right now? And since I've learned that from him, I've operated from that. Like, what do I need? Do I have to call someone, read something, email somebody? Literally right now, not tomorrow, not the next day, what is it right now? So for me,
and if you pick the wrong right now, it's 15 minutes. You can pick another one.
You retool and go another direction, right? Yeah. So to me, that combo of, if you look at great organizations, and I've had the privilege of peeking into many different very affluent people's lives, great companies, dysfunctional people's lives, dysfunctional companies. And I see process, and that people that have processes that they commit to, they create these great results. Sporting teams do that, companies do that. And I realize, well, I don't need to know everything, but if I can figure out where I am and where I want to go, acknowledge the brutal reality, and just take another step.
Yeah.
Right? A little step. It doesn't have to be some huge, I don't have to believe something about myself that I can be the next Jeff Bezos or Superman. I just need to believe, can I do one more step?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So it's actually the Stockdale Paradox plus ABZ action. I like that. ABZ, because the Z implies letting serendipity take the wheel a little bit. If you're moving in that direction and you're at that, what's B? What do I got to do in the next 15 seconds? You're moving in a direction, and serendipity might veer off the end result, but it's still going to be awesome. Still pretty awesome to have 110 stores, maybe giving you free guitars, judging by how many guitars you have back there. And one of them looks like it's in a bulletproof case too. So
they're all in travel cases.
That one was expensive.
So
and then adding process, you said too.
Yeah, process is important. So one thing I asked him, how many times did you look at Z? Everyone talks about having goals, right? And I said, did you stare at Z all the time? And he said, maybe once a year I looked up and what Z? He said, you just got to directionally go the right direction. Came back to really what you said, because he said the outcome may change a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to be open to what direction we're going.
And he still was excellent, right? He wanted to be an excellent whatever player, but he ended up being an excellent business person, because if you acknowledge where you are and believe in yourself and take action immediately, you're going to get somewhere good.
You're going to get somewhere. And you'll realize as you get older that time and place have an impact on what the opportunities are. And you may have no control of the time when you're born, where you're born, and what time of history with what technologies. Right. So you've got to be flexible in terms of, hey, here's what's unfolding in front of me that I can do.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we're going to get into some more of that. We're going to get into Northwestern and his internship after college, where some of my buddies like Max went.
Yeah.
To work with Max way back in the day. That's how I met Greg. Big Four Insurance. And then Greg went off and started his own thing while working for a wonderful company. So we're going to talk about how you do that and how you have your cake and eat it too. But before we get into that, Greg, we got to go way back to when you were in high school. Where did you go to high school? What was life like? And did you go to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo?
No, I didn't. I grew up in the Pasadena area, went to high school there, graduated from high school there, and studied music since fourth grade.
Wow.
Yeah, and that sort of led me through where to go to college, really. And
where'd you go?
I ended up graduating from UCLA, but I actually I got into UCLA. Well, there's some lessons here. Okay. I thought I would be in music because it was all I knew.
Yeah,
I'd done that since fourth grade, which was 1976.
Yeah.
In third grade, the orchestra was playing at our school. And I went up to the orchestra director and I said, hey, I want to play the guitar. What do I do? And he said, well, there's no guitar in the orchestra. And I said, well, what's the closest thing to it? And he said, the string bass. I said, sign me up.
Okay.
So that got me going on music. But it was the only skill I had. So I assumed as I went through the years that that's just what I would do. And when you do something like just sports, where there's club sports, where there's club orchestra, and as you sort of go up the food chain, there's people that take your name down and they figure out who all the kids are, right? The colleges. Yeah. And I went home one day and my mom said, someone called from UCLA, you got to return the call. And I called and they said, hey, can you come down and spend a few days and audition? And I don't think I was that great, but there's just not that many bass players or oboe players, right? And I went down there and I saw a bunch of other kids I'd recognized. And I auditioned and I was really nervous. And I remember they stopped me and the guy said, I need you to start breathing.
Okay.
So I took some breaths and started again. And then after they walked over, and they had an application, and on red it was stamped accepted.
Oh,
And they said, let's
wow.
fill this out. And I decided not to go because I was in such conflict with my parents that I was like, I can't be in Los Angeles, right? So I ended up going to 2 other schools just to sort of spite my mom and dad. Bad move, by the way. Fine schools and met great people there. I probably wouldn't undo it. But I came back to UCLA and it ended up doing 3 years there. And I think the lesson I got from that experience is I had passions and I wanted to do my passions. And what I learned was when you have passions, especially in LA, you see kids that get, I got to be an actor, or I got to do something and I got to go all in on it. And what I learned is you don't need to go all in on your passions. You can go get a job and do
have
your
passion on the side.
Yeah, and have a long runway and do it for the rest of your life instead of saying, I tried to be an actor or a film director or write novels and the first one didn't sell, so now I got to go be a dentist. Right. There's a great lesson in that.
That's interesting because my wife, you mentioned sports before. My wife was a Division I soccer player and played with all the greats. And, you know, she still plays soccer, but it's Friday night co-ed league. She doesn't play soccer with anybody. What's the age? There's an age cutoff. And I think it's like 25 because they're like so much faster if they're under 25. She's on the board of the soccer league around here. She helps advise my friend that has a women's pro soccer team on, you know, some of the staff. She's like deep into it, and she built a community around us that everybody's still here. All her 8-year-old soccer players we were all in New York together, stuck in that snow-nado.
Yeah.
Shout out to New York City. Thank you for having a hurricane combined with a snowstorm and getting me stuck there for 3 extra days because I like New York City. But that's amazing. You can have passion on the side, and you were focused all in on your passion and then ended up with what degree from UCLA?
Poli-sci.
That's what I have. Do we already know that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just reading and writing, right? They give you a problem to solve, you read about it, and you research and you write something.
Yeah. And I also have history, which is also reading and writing. So I know a lot about history, and I love watching history shows. I know a lot about politics, and I love talking shit about current American politics, which I'm not allowed to do anymore. People keep telling me to stop.
Yeah.
But what you really learn is you learn how to read and write and express yourself. And you probably were thinking about being a lawyer at the time. Is that why you did it?
No, my dad was a lawyer. And no, I didn't see myself doing that.
Okay. So, and you actually went to high school. Did you go to Pasadena High School?
I went to Loyola High School, which is a Catholic boys' school, my freshman year, because my mom's 5 brothers went there. My dad went there. My 2 brothers went there.
Yeah.
And they don't have really a music program. So I ended up graduating from a little school called La Cañada High School.
Oh, yeah, I know it. Okay, so you went from La Cañada and you were striving to be ahead in music and you were putting a bunch of time and energy into music. Did you have jobs? What else were you doing to get ahead?
I had jobs, but I got to the point with the music thing where you need to be practicing like during the summer 6 hours a day. You can't get to the college level.
What does that have to do with a job if you're practicing 6 hours a day?
Well, you in the summer, you can practice 6 hours a day in the morning and then go get a job and wash dishes in a Chinese restaurant.
Because you know I got my red card out.
I love that.
I got my red card out. I'm not going to show you the red card, but the yellow card is coming up. So just to make sure everybody listening right now, because you're in baseball and you're in club baseball, club soccer, club football, because you have 2-a-days, because you're going to Berklee School of Music as the next greatest drummer of all time, and they're going to make that movie about you next time. None of that matters because it's 6 hours a day. If it's 8 hours a day, nobody cares. If you don't have a job, you're not going to get a job. So you have to have employment. You got to go work the restaurant or the counter so you can get the next job up, And even though we've got Greg here headed off to wherever he wants to head off as the next Eddie Van Halen with his bass. Eddie Van Halen played guitar. Entwistle. What was Entwistle's first?
He was a bass player. The Who.
The next Entwistle, he knew to get a job. So you're working.
Always had jobs.
What were they?
And that started, my first job was stocking the shelves at a liquor store. I went to my dad. And
I had that job too.
It was a great job. This thing was owned by.
I was a dirty, shitty kid, and I would stock the trunk of my car. And it was my friend's dad's liquor store, Constantine Nellis. I'll never forget. He treated me so nicely, and I was such a shithead. I stole booze from him, and he caught me.
Oh,
Great lesson. Lost the friendship. Great lesson. If anybody from the Nellos family is listening, I apologize. Sorry
yeah.
that the lesson was on you. But you had the liquor store stocking job. What else?
I went to my dad and I said, I want a job. I want to get a bike. And he said, let's go get a bike right now. I said, really? He said, yeah, get in the car. I said, no way. Get in. Come on. We got on my dad's yellow Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. And we drove up to the main drag in town and we stopped at a stoplight. And my dad said, get out. I said, Dad, the bike shop's not anywhere near here. And he said, it's closer than you think. Get out of the car. I said, what do I do? And he said, see all those businesses? Walk down the street and knock on every door until someone gives you a job. So I started knocking on doors. When I went to the liquor store, they said, we'll pay you $2.63 an hour if you sweep the floors and clean the bathroom and stock the freezer and do the whole thing. And the guy's like, you can eat as much food as you want, and that was my first job. So even with the music and all the extracurricular stuff that went along with it, and the lessons and the practice and school and sports, I played sports too. Yeah. I always had a job, right? And maybe I didn't have a job during the intense sports season or something, but I always had, music lessons. And so you'd come home after football practice and then you'd have to practice the bass. And then you'd have to do your homework, right? Weekends. And then, my parents would always have someone coming over to make us, like, I remember waking up at 4:30 in the morning and there's a guy in my bedroom. My mom says, that's him. And the guy's all, get in my truck. I'm like, what's going on? And my brothers and I are shuffled into the back of a truck, and then you're going to a construction site and breaking up foundations.
Yeah, you had to, if you want to have the privilege of working 60 hours a week and getting paid a nice salary, you have to have the experience of managing 60 hours a week, going to school, even if it's college, and partying with your friends on the weekend and going on vacation every weekend. That's not going to get you to where you want to be later in life, which is able to go on vacations, able to party with your friends, having power over yourself. So you're in high school, you're hustling, you got into UCLA, you decided to take a detour. I can understand that you're pissed at your parents for giving you all these hard lessons that you thank them for now.
Yes.
And if you're listening right now and you've been pissed at your parents for being good parents, call your parents up and thank them because they're good parents. And then so you get out of school, and how did you end up getting into the insurance business and then later starting your own insurance company?
So I wanted to follow my passions, right? I wanted to play music. I wanted to brew beer. I wanted to make ice cream. And I think I made a mistake where I thought, well, if you want to play music, you should get a job at a record company. Or if you want to write books, you should get a job at a publishing company. And I realized that was a huge mistake. And I hated the job at the record company. And then just to make ends meet, I ended up getting a job at a clothing manufacturer that owned by a friend and his father, who was a dear friend of my dad. And I ended up unloading denim off 18-wheeler trucks in a warehouse in Montebello for a year and a half. And then I started brewing beer. And I worked with a guy at a brewery, an industrial brewery in LA. And it was the early 90s. And I saw a lot of failure happening there and with some other competing breweries. And it just got desperate after a while. And I needed a job. And I went to UCLA to the job board.
Okay.
And I had a bunch of friends living in the East San Gabriel Valley. If you're not from LA, there's downtown LA, there's Pasadena where the Rose Bowl is. And if you go east of there, there's a lot of bedroom communities. And I noticed on the job board that there was a insurance company in Arcadia, California, and they had an office there, and they were hiring. And my friends lived in this little bedroom community right next door. And they were telling me there was like 5 guys living in one house. You got to move from the west side of LA. You got to move in with us. We're having a little frat house here. And I thought, well, that'd be 5 minutes from this work if I got a job there. Yeah. So I made a resume. I'd already sent a resume to every Fortune 500 company and got like 4 responses back.
So saying, 4 out of 500.
Just saying, hey, thanks for writing, but we're not interested.
Yeah.
And so I got a letter back from this insurance company saying, hey, we're interested. You got to come take an exam. And if you pass the exam, we interview the kids who passed the exam. So I went to Arcadia to a place called the Arboretum, which is a park of a guy, was an oil guy named Lucky Baldwin. He gave his home to the city of LA. and they had like a convention center on it, and 300 people milled into this thing to take this exam.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so I'm sitting, they had these tables, and there's 2 people per table. And I'm sitting next to a guy who introduced himself, and his name is Jim Alcala. And Jim, and I think 17 out of the 300 or so passed the exam. And the exam was really easy. That's how kind of sad maybe our education system is.
Okay.
And so Jim and I, coincidentally, out of all those people, were the only 2 people hired. And we were sitting next to each other at that test. And because of the recession of the early 90s, out of 5,000 employees, I don't know about the whole company, but in our office, which had 300 or 400 people in it, we were the last people hired for 5 years.
Wow.
So it showed me about time and place, like sort of.
It goes back to your definition. You weren't trying to do this. It's ABZ. And just like the guy that got the guitar company, now you got a business in insurance because you just never know. And if you're working hard, what did you say? If you are confident in yourself, you acknowledge where you are and where you want to be, ABZ, and let serendipity take the wheel. That's a cool story.
So I got a job in this insurance carrier. It's my first office job. The first day I show up, there's a guy named Eric Nabriga, and Eric says, I'm going to introduce you around. And he had to wear a suit and a tie, to work. This is back in the early 90s.
Well, you still do in the Midwest. I keep having to go to the Midwest to make me wear a suit. It's like, I had to go dry clean my suits before my next Midwest trip.
Putting on a tie, I don't even remember.
I don't even own ties. Like they get pissed at me. I gave all my ties away. Ties are like $100. I gave away 100 ties. Now I have a black one, a white one, and then this multicolored one, and I never wear any of them. If I'm wearing a tuxedo, I don't wear a tie.
So Eric Nabriga walks me around to the cubicles of the different people, and he walks me to a guy named Rick, and he says, "Hey, Rick, this is Greg, new employee, first day." And he said, "Rick, if you would lift up your arms." And Rick lifts up his arms like a referee saying touchdown. And it's all yellow stains under his arms. And then Rick introduced me to some other people and takes me back to my little cube. And he says, "So tomorrow when you come to work, you're going to go after work, you're going to go buy some undershirts. And then you're going to wear that undershirt under your white dress shirt every day you come to work. You got the point, right?" And I said, "Oh, I got the point." The point
was you're going to work hard?
And you're going to wear undershirts and not have a yellow stain in your armpits that people can see, right? So you get these little lessons. But that was my first office job of sort of navigating. I had no idea what insurance was. And after the 6-week training course, they said, you'll either be in underwriting or claims or safety or sales. And I wanted nothing to do with sales. Okay. And they said, "Well, you're going to be in sales.
Okay.
Here's your cube and here's a stack of people to start calling."
Did they give you a disc test or something?
No.
So they just knew you were a salesperson?
No, I don't think they knew it was at all. And I didn't want to do it. And they said, "No one else wants to do it, so you're going to do it. And have at it."
Okay, so you got into this company, and then you went to another giant insurance company, and then you went to Palms, which is my insurance company. Shout out to Palms. We love Palms. You know what I love about Palms and love dealing with you is you guys solve problems, because I've had a lot of problems, and you've solved all my problems.
Fun to solve problems.
Yeah, it's fun to solve, and I like when you solve my problems. Like, "Hey, Greg, I bought another car. Can I drive it?" "No, you can't drive it." "Why can't I drive it?" "You can't get insurance on the car, and there's a fire near your house, so you need to leave the car in your garage." "Wait a second, Greg, my street's on fire. What do I do now?" "You make sure the car doesn't burn because it's not insured yet." So I was out there with my hose, let me tell you. So let's just talk about what you do. Let's say you're getting out of college and you're following your path. Yeah. You're going after, what was the second company you worked for after Northwestern Mutual?
Marsh and McLennan.
So Northwestern Mutual, Marsh and McLennan, who you're going after. You get into these different niches. And I know your niche right now is, I believe, high net worth individuals and solving problems.
That started about 24 so years ago at Marsh. They were going to put me in the workers' comp, or what they called the private client group. And then they put me in private client, which was a whole new thing for me, which was you're going to do risk and insurance for the world's wealthiest families. And it was my first introduction to that world. I had no idea what a family office was. I'd never met a billionaire or a centimillionaire. I had no idea that there was a whole industry that called on those people, right? Trust and estates, accounting, wealth management, personal security. I just had no idea that world existed. And I spent the next 5 years there working with those types of clients and learning how to keep my head above water in that world.
Okay,
And
so you're in that niche, and that private client thing it encompasses all of that because you're doing insurance, you're helping them figure out their trust and estate, you're helping figure out their wealth management, steering them in the right direction. You got a Rolodex of people to help them out.
yeah,
You are personal security. That's what insurance is. So a day in the life of someone that wants to go into insurance out of college. Obviously, in all these roles, you start off smiling and dialing for someone else to prove you got the gumption.
my advice would be not to start that way.
Okay.
My advice is, unless you're wired for that, I met a fabulous gal who's in commercial real estate who said, my favorite thing to do is make 100 cold calls a day. And I thought she was kidding, and she wasn't. She said, I find it energizing.
Mhm.
Most people don't find that amusing. So
Okay.
if you're one of those people like myself who is not interested in doing that, to get into the insurance business, I would recommend what happens in accounting and law is that when you graduate from law school and you go to a great firm like Gibson Dunn or Latham Watkins and they give you a job, they don't say go out and bring in clients. You're 25 years old. You work as an associate for someone who's a partner and has work they can give you, and you learn the ropes. And over time, you meet people and you're able to bring in business. So my advice would be go get a job working for someone who has a lot of clients, or go get a job at an insurance company or a managing general underwriter, learn claims or underwriting, learn the business and get a paycheck. And that buys you time to figure out where in the supply chain you want to be and what fits your personality. Because, like any industry, and you know this, Matt, the insurance industry has almost every job you could imagine. There's technology, there's actuary, there's accounting, there's sales, there's underwriting, there's management, there's any job you can think of in that industry, they have it. So you want to figure out, hey, how can I get a paycheck?
Yeah.
Right. And not worry about paying the rent, and then figure out where I can go in this industry and find myself. And it's a worldwide industry. It's not going away. It uses tremendous amount of technology and problem solving. You got to figure out where you fit into it.
That's
So
really good advice. So if I want to go into the private client arena, I still find an associate, a partner. I'm an associate for a partner, excuse me, and I'm getting mentored and I'm practicing and I'm figuring it out and buying myself time. What's the difference between the private client arena that you were in and the workers' comp arena, which is dealing with corporations? What skill sets are different? Same path to get there. You're an associate for a partner.
yeah. So the workers' comp is, a product that a company will buy. It's one of many insurance products. If you move into, and I worked at an insurance company there, but as you work into the brokerage field, like I've been in at Marsh and then 17 years since Marsh at Palms, I'm doing a lot of things for clients. So I might be doing the personal insurance for the owners. I might be doing all the corporate insurance for the company. We might be doing their employee benefits. So there's a lot of different things you can do for your clients, right? And if I have a client where I'm doing all the family's personal insurance, the company's buying all sorts of insurance, and they're having employee benefits also, there's many different areas where we might find ourselves advising that client on, right? So there's sort of endless learning that takes place. And as you go down the path, you can start expanding. So when I left Marsh, when I was at Marsh, I did one thing, the private client work. When I went to Palms, they said, hey, why don't you work with your private clients? They own businesses. There's all sorts of stuff we can do. And I started expanding. I had no idea what I was doing at first.
Solving problems.
Yes. And so the joy of my business, Matt, is problem solving and organization. And the skill really is executive function. You don't need to be brilliant, but you need to have executive function skills, be able to organize, and like serving people and solving their problems. If you don't like serving people, you're not going to enjoy it. And if you get flustered by problem solving, it's not going to be fun.
Okay. That's actually fantastic. So any other information that you have, and this has been really interesting, and you've got a lot of stuff that applies to outside of insurance. So I'm so glad we brought you on today, because anybody listening right now is going to benefit from this. Anything else that you have as advice for someone in their 20s maybe not know what they're doing. They're at the B level. What do I do next? To
Yeah.
either research, find out about, figure out if it makes the butterflies go in their stomach with insurance and all these different options in insurance, which is not going away.
Yeah.
There
I
will
would
be
say,
AI enhancing it, but it's not going away.
I would say like three things. One is if you have a passion, do what I call the magic. And the magic is if you got a job working at XYZ company, Xerox, let's call it, IBM, Ralph's, doesn't matter. You got a job, it's going to pay the bills, but you're really passionate about filmmaking. My advice would go write 50 screenplays. Get up at 4 a.m. and write for 2 hours every morning, right? And then of those 50 screenplays, make 20 films on your phone. And if you have that passion, go and do that passion, because there's a big difference between saying you've done something 50 times and, oh, I made 20 films and they're all on some, I sold some on Amazon or whatever, or some have been, and saying to someone, can I work with you? Versus I work at, Whole Foods and I have no film experience and can you give me a job? Those are two different conversations. And what I realized is when you go out and start doing something, it changes, the opportunities open up. And when I started my company, I did what I call the magic. I went out and I called 650 people on the phone. I got 103 meetings to get one yes. And then from that yes, I started building a little thing, 3-4 hours a night after work, and worked every Saturday and Sunday for 5 years. And so I just kept doing that. That was my magic. And when I met people and they said, what are you trying to do? I said, I'm trying to start this insurance carrier. They'd say, well, you really haven't done anything. And I'd say, oh, I have a database with $15 billion of value in it. And I have all this infrastructure and I've done this. All of a sudden people would say, when can we talk?
Yeah. It
changes everything because I've done something. So my first piece of advice is do the magic, go out and do something, right? And you don't have to put yourself at risk. And
you may need to keep waiting tables or slicing pizza, but you got time to write the song at 4 a.m. You got
and
time
you can
to
do
make
a
the
serious
art.
job. I have a friend who's a lawyer who has written a couple novels, right? I have a friend who works at an industrial company and he sells paintings for $50,000 a painting.
Wow.
Right? So you can go do that stuff. My second piece of advice would be, I have what's called the surfing theory of business. And the surfing theories of business is you need to be where the waves are. And if you grow up in Kansas City and your parents give you the best surfboard in the world and the best wetsuit, and you know how to swim, there's no waves in Kansas City. So waves are your thing, and you want to surf, you need waves. So you're going to need to go metaphorically where the waves are. And no surprise, the waves aren't at one beach 365.
No.
So you're going to have to move with the opportunities and the times. Yeah. So my advice is, if you want to be in finance, you probably got to go to New York, right? In insurance, New York or London are a great place to start. Entertainment, probably LA. Technology, start in the Bay Area, right? So go where that concentration of opportunity is. And that may change over time, but that's going to make your life so much easier. If you're trying to surf from Kansas City, you're going to get really frustrated and think you're a failure. You're not. And if you're at a place where waves are coming in every minute, you can just crash 100 waves and you can still just get one is all you need. Right? And I remember when I was at UCLA, Billy Joel came and spoke. He didn't play, he just came and speak to us. And when he was done, the kids got to line up and ask questions. And one kid said, I'm really struggling. I want to be a songwriter. I just feel like my songs suck. And Billy Joel said, well, how many songs have you written? He said, 3 or 4. And Billy said, okay, interesting. He said, here's what I'm going to tell you. He said, write 100 songs, and then you'll know if you're going in the right direction or not. So if you're in a place where you can take a lot of swings or surf a lot of waves, after 1,000 waves, you'll figure out, you know what, I'm really not made for this, or I am made for this, and I'm going to catch my wave. Yeah. So that's my
ABZ.
Yeah, you're going to take.
What's the third one though? You didn't give us the third one.
What was my third one? Now you caught me. Oh, my third one is this. You may not have a passion, and that's totally okay, because we all have things we can get fascinated and curious about.
Yeah.
But before you get there, you always talk about the DISC assessment.
Yeah.
Find out what you're wired to do and what you can be engaged in. Because if you find yourself being a dentist and you're not detail oriented, you don't like being in the same little office all day, doing minute stuff with your hands. You know, one of my dad's buddies became a
Or you do like doing that. You find yourself in a role like me and you have.
Yeah, you're going to be miserable.
Like yeah.
One of my dad's buddies became a very well-known orthopedic surgeon to the LA, famous athletes. Yeah. He's since passed away. And I was asking about it. And one day he said to me, I knew I was going to be a carpenter, an auto mechanic, or an orthopedic surgeon. He said, I was never happy. I had to work with my hands. Yeah. And he said, the problem now is people who become doctors are really smart. That's not the skill of being a doctor, isn't smarts. Yeah. And he said, to be a surgeon, it's not about being smart. It's about being really good with your hands. Yeah. And that may change with technology in the future. But so that goes back to, if you know what you're wired to do, and then you can find something you can be engaged in, that's a life of richness. And the actual content, the actual industry may not be that important.
And neither you nor I knew what we were passionate about until we stumbled across it. Like, I didn't know I was passionate about 20-somethings and helping them get jobs until I'd done it for like 20 years. And I went, oh my God, I guess I really love this. And
I never thought I'd be passionate about the insurance business until I'm 25 years into it and I'm starting my own business. And I'm thinking, I couldn't read enough articles, see enough things. It just became engaging.
I bet we would have found out if we weren't into it though. Because we wouldn't have lasted 25 years. So you got to go try things. If you don't like it, jump off that wave, get on another wave. If you don't like that, most people will change their job 6 times. Well, I know we're running out of time. I got one question to ask you.
Yeah.
You worked hard when you were in high school. You had all these things going on. You worked hard when you were in college. You worked hard all your life. When you look back, was there a point in time where you were like, you had to make a decision that was better for your future, but you were cutting something off in the present that you were just really going to regret? And you look back and you're like, thank God I did that. Thank God I took that option.
Yes. And I think one of the challenges in life of having things work out to a degree that's very tolerable for you is that giving that up seems very risky, right? If you're miserable, it's easy to say, I'm going to roll the dice.
Yeah, but if you're working your waiting job and you're making $200 a night, going off to law school may sound scary, or doing some sort of program.
But I'm talking about when it's even better, right? When you've been to law school and now you're making $350,000 a year, and an opportunity rolls up, and you think, but I'm so invested. I'm making all this money. Yeah. You've heard the phrase, you got to give up to go up.
Okay.
Sometimes in life, we need to give up things that are good to get what's better. And that's much easier than giving up what's miserable to get something better, right? When you're waiting tables, it's easy to say, I just got into law school, right? Yeah. I'm going to go for it. When you're at a decent job and it's secure, maybe your dad got you that job, your dad worked at that company for 40 years, and now you're there and you can see yourself riding out a whole career there. Yeah. It's harder to say, I'm going to take some risk and do something where I don't know what the outcome's going to be. And here's my theory about that now, because when I got into starting my company, the anxiety was, what if this doesn't work out? Yeah. I financed this company out of my day job.
Yeah.
And I thought, what if I spend all this money and I'm 5 years into it and it fails? Now what I've realized is, if it fails, am I better as a founder who invested 5 years into something and built it with a really small team and did everything? Or would I just fail as an insurance broker who didn't take any risk?
Yeah.
So I would think that we look at choices in life and we see the consequences, and sometimes we back off because we don't like those consequences, right? I'm not going to ask that person. I see someone at the bar, they look attractive. I'd love to go on a date with them, but if they say no, it's going to be humiliating. I don't want humiliation, so I'm not going to take that action. Yeah. What I've realized is we have to look beyond the pain of rejection or humiliation.
Look at the humiliation as a learning prospect.
Yes, and
Change
celebrate.
your lineup. Love the process, not the outcome.
Yes.
We're going ABZ.
Yes, you just thumbs it up. You got to be into that process and feel whatever that outcome is, whether it's good or bad. Just let your body process it.
It's all good because even if it's bad, it's good.
Yes.
Because you're growing. Well, Greg Hughes, I'm looking forward to our lunch. I will not get stranded in a New York snow-nado again. Thank you for making time to share your wisdom today. And thank you for coming on the Edge of Excellence.
All right, my man.
Thank you.